Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. So glad you're here. This is episode 106. It's a dream come true. And I couldn't do it without viewers like you. I appreciate the audience that tune in week after week to watch this show live. But I also appreciate the people that maybe can't watch this show live and watch it days, weeks, months, even years later. So I appreciate the support. And most of all, I appreciate all the great guests that I've had on this show. Met so many interesting people with so many interesting hobbies. It's been a great ride. And tonight's show will be no different with my guest. Just so, for those of you that are new, I see some newcomers here tonight. So just remind you, this is a variety show, which means week after week or each week I have an individual guest to talk about individual topic. Might be their profession. It could be a hobby. Maybe they're going to do a how-to segment, how to make something. And we've even had some musicians on. And so you never know what you're going to go week after week. So I appreciate you tuning in to watch an episode, but make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm sure you'll see that up there somewhere. That really helps us out. And that way you can keep track of what's coming up. And also, if you like our guest tonight, you'll see that thumbs up button in there. So make sure you hit that and give some comments. My guest tonight would love to hear some comments from you. So make sure you can comment either through the live chat or through the comments below if you're watching the recorded version of this. So thanks everybody again, and welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show. We're here Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you all again for tuning in. Hope you've all had a great week so far. And if you've noticed anything different about the show behind me, I got the world map back up. For those of you that have been following me, I used to have a world map up here, but I was experimenting with some things. I remember the Texas map up here, and then I tried the red curtain thing, and personally, I'm glad I got rid of the red curtain. I don't know how y'all felt about it, but I thought it looked awful back there. The problem is I threw the old world map away. I thought, I don't need that anymore. Well, guess what? I needed it. So I ordered this one, and I like this one better because this one has a little bit more brilliant colors. The other one was kind of faded, so trying to make it look like an official newscast. Does this look like a newscast that you see on the nightly news? I don't think they wear a cowboy hat, but hey, who's noticing anything? So anyway, again, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show, and glad you're all here. I've got a great guest, as I always do week after week, and I am looking forward to her sharing her information and her creative work with you. Her name is Patti Lee, and she is an author, has written a great book. And we're going to bring her on right now to talk about her profession, her book, and overall conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Patti Lee. Patti, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's jump right into it. You've written a book, and we're going to bring that book up right now so we can talk about it or look at it while you're talking about it. So here's your new book, and tell us the title and kind of give us a synopsis of what it's about.
Sure. So my book, this is my debut novel, and it is between February and November. And I like to say anything can happen between February and November, which is how I got the title.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially, it boils down to, it's a love story. It's about a long married couple, and the wife happens to see her husband out and about in another town unexpectedly with another woman.
Uh-oh.
And she begins to question her marriage and the choices that they have made. So it's it kind of goes from there, and we have some time jumps, so we kind of learn how they met and learn the story of their life throughout the book, and then of course we figure out what happens between February and November.
Is it written more from her point of view, or is it more written just like, okay, this is what happened?
No, so it's a three-person point of view. So it's so that the story is Layla and Alan. And so we have Layla's point of view, and then we have Alan's point of view, and we also have the other woman's point of view. Her name is Mel. So we get a little taste of everybody's position in this story.
But it ends up though he was cheating on her, though, the wife. Oh,
Well, we'll have to read the book to find out exactly what happened.
exactly what happened. He. Well, I'll put the. But you didn't say cheating. I don't want to put. You just said the wife saw him with another woman. That's what you actually said.
The wife
Okay.
saw him. She followed them to a hotel. Yes.
Okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know what happens, maybe you should buy that book right there. So this is all. I mean, the title pretty much is self-explanatory. Everything in the book happens between February and November.
Correct. Yes. And yes, and it's also so much could happen between February and November. So there's a lot that happens in those few months.
Now, without giving the details away, but was the couple in your story, were they already married, or were they married between February and November? Like,
no, they'd been married for about 20 years. And then,
20 years. Oh,
yes,
wow.
yes, and then the story starts to unfold.
Oh, interesting. So let me ask you, on this book, between February and November, what was your inspiration, or where did you get the idea to write this book?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm not a writer. I'd never written anything before. I dabbled a little bit. I journaled, but I didn't ever expect to sit down and write a book. And then I often make up stories in my mind about who I see out and about, or, at the coffee shop, or, whatever. And they're obviously, they don't go anywhere. I don't know the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I tell myself, maybe because I'm bored. I don't know. But then one day in February, actually, February of 2019, I just woke up and I just, I had the story in my head and I said, I'm going to write this down. So I start writing the story, and the story I wanted to write, the story I was going to write was going to be a lighthearted story about, how spouses take each other for granted. And really,
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing is, so I've been married for 35 years myself.
Oh, congratulations. 35 years.
Long time. Yeah.
Great.
So, and so, everything happens at one point or another, right? So my husband, who I love very dearly, but he does things that get on my nerves, right? So one day, and it's not even one day, he often does this. He has his cup of coffee and he leaves it on the side of the counter, which is literally 2 feet from the sink. And I just think to myself, why can't you just put that in the sink, right? So, I mean, just little things like that. I thought
irritabilities. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I'd put these in the book, right? Just, kind of little things like that. And then I start writing the story, and I'm also what we call a pantster, which means I don't really have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't plot it out before I start writing.
Oh, that's good.
I just start writing, and then we see where it goes. And so this lighthearted story that I set out to write turned into a kind of romantic drama story that has nothing to do with how I started the book. So it was an interesting journey to end up where I ended up. And I was really, and again, I didn't have a lot of experience writing. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just thought it was so bizarre and funny that I'm in charge. Like, I'm the one writing, right? But the characters in my mind are the ones that are telling the story.
Sure.
So it is the story that was told was the story that was told. It wasn't the story that I set out to write.
So in other words, it was lighthearted, but then it took a dark turn. Would you say that?
And it's actually it's not a lighthearted book at all. So the book that I just finished writing, The Truth About Tanya, that's kind of got the more lighthearted stuff in it. So that one doesn't have a home yet, though. But the between February and November, not lighthearted, more of a dramatic.
I see.
Book.
We got a few questions and comments from the audience. So let me ask you this. Now, I don't know the answer to this. We're talking about the people's perspective in the book and position. Is perspective the same as position? Are they taking us like a position or perspective? How would you answer that?
They're giving their side of the story. So it's not. So like Layla, chapter 1 starts with Layla and her point of view. This is how she starts her day. She had a terrible day at work. She's a home health aide. Her client had a heart attack. She had to bring them to the hospital.
Wow.
And the hospital's 2 towns away. She wanted a drink on the way home, and she stopped at this bar that's 2 towns away. And she happened to see her husband at that bar with a.
That's where it happens. Oh,
yes.
Wow.
And then a couple more things happen in chapter 1, and then chapter 2 is Alan's take. And so chapter 2 starts with Alan starting that same day. And this is how his day unfolds, and this is how he ends up where he ended up, and that's how each chapter starts, and that's how the book continues.
I see.
Yeah. So everybody has their own point of view, their own perspective on on how they got where they are
I see.
in the book. And I act like they're real people. I think in my mind they kind of are, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you said something that makes sense for everybody that's a couple, whether they're married or been a couple for a long time. There's always going to be those little annoyances
Yeah.
where the man gets annoyed at the woman and the woman gets annoyed at the man. I mean, it's just when you live together with somebody, there's some things that's going to happen. In fact, there's a comment we got here. Radio Vault says, we all get on their nerves. There is no getting around it. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I mean, that's part of marriage too, and it's how you react and respond. I should say you should respond, because we don't want to react things; we want to respond to things in a thoughtful way. So yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's part of marriage. It's the ups, it's the downs. And just to clarify, like, everything in this book is fictional. Like, I didn't see my husband in a bar with another woman. I didn't follow anybody anywhere.
That was actually my next question. Now, not you specifically, but I was going to ask you, is this based on anybody you know? But I guess that answer is no.
No, not at all. It was again, it just, when I started writing, this is just how it came out. It's just what happened. And things in the book didn't always make sense, and I had to go back and kind of make them make sense, because when obviously when I'm writing, it doesn't necessarily make sense, and I have to go in and adjust so that people can understand exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen. It's just
now, new books. I always ask the authors on this show, like your book here, is there a certain age group this would be targeted at? In other words, is it acceptable to all ages, or we're more young adult? Is it more adult oriented, mature? How would you describe your target audience? Is what I'm saying.
my target audience is people between the ages of like 18 and, I don't know,
adults. Yes.
Yeah, adults. I have an older aunt who is in her 80s, and she read the book, and she let me know she read the book, and she said she really enjoyed it, except for the one part with Mel talking about her sex life, which nothing explicit. I mean, there's nothing explicit.
It happens,
That's true. But so there's, just to clarify, there's nothing explicit, but there is there's some words in there that maybe some people wouldn't be comfortable with. There's some swearing, light swearing, but not.
That happens. That does happen.
It does. Yes.
You said something just now. Now let me ask you, on this book here, when was this published? When did this come out?
This came out in November of 2022 is when it came out. Yes, it was released November 11th. I want to say November 10th of 2022. Yes, very exciting.
Right. Now, you mentioned something just now. You got a work in progress. You said Tanya something. Was that what it's called?
I just finished a women's contemporary fiction, and I waffled on the name of the book. So I have the name as The Truth About Tanya. I have some beta readers who I they read my work, and then I send them some questions. I'm sorry, that's my dog.
Yeah.
I send them some questions, and I say, basically it's a list of questions, and I ask them to answer, and I want to make sure that the story makes sense and that it's engaging, and so after I edited the story so it made sense to everybody, I sent everybody some titles, and this is the title that I like, and they were like, that doesn't make any sense, I don't think that works, and but it made sense to me. So The Truth About Tanya is what it is right now. If it finds a home with a publisher, it very well could change, because they are the last ones. They make the decision. So
okay. Then you probably got some people wondering. There's not many questions about it, but every time there's an animal around, people want to know what kind of animal. So how many animals and what kind of breeds are they? Do you have?
Okay, I have a couple surprises that might come on.
Oh, here we go.
So I have a little 15-pound Pomsky. So he is a Pomeranian Husky mix.
Oh, wow.
And he's kind of yippy and very excitable. He's 7 months old, so he's 8 months old now, but he's very much still in puppy mode. And then I have an Australian Shepherd. His name is Indy, and he's a wonderful dog, but he often jumps up on me and is like, you need to give me some attention now. And I say, get down. And I have 4 cats.
4 cats?
4 cats at the moment. I have 4 cats who they will not come in here because the dogs are in here.
Oh, I wish my cat would take that. My cat wants to come in here.
Yeah. Well, my cats do too, but because this where I am, like, all the animals want to be, which Indy, the older dog, the Australian Shepherd, loves the cats, and the cats loved him. But this puppy has so much energy, and my cats are just so laid back, and they're like Indy. Indy is older, and the puppy has a lot of energy, and Indy doesn't have any energy. So that the cats are just used to kind of like being chill and like whatever,
I
man,
see.
And now the puppy is very noisy, and he's of course squeaking a toy because
In fact, we have a comment that says, I hope I hear a squeak toy, not a pup's breathing. That's a squeaky toy, right?
yeah, that's definitely a squeak toy. They're just for you.
Okay. Hey, and maybe I should reword my phrase, what I said earlier, because I asked you on your book what the target audience is. Maybe I should rephrase that. I should say, who is the book intended for? Because one of the audience says, target audience makes me think sniper. Good call, Freaky Geek. So we'll say who your book is intended for. We'll change that.
Yeah, my book is intended for anybody who wants to read it, but it is an adult novel for people who enjoy contemporary fiction.
Sure, sounds great. How long did it take you to write this book? Like from beginning, not necessarily when you got it published, but when you started it till when you said, okay, I'm done now. How long did that take you about?
That's funny because, again, I don't know what I'm doing, and I didn't know what I was doing when I started writing. And so I started writing it in February of 2019, and I was done in May of 2019, which in my very naive writer brain thought I was done. And I was like, all right, well, so now I'll just send it to agents and I'll send it to publishers, and it'll take off from there. And so I did, and I had some very helpful feedback from some agents who said, your book is, I'm not even going to read your book, essentially, they said, because it's 40,000 words, and a novel is not 40,000 words. And I was like, oh, all right, these things are important for me to know. So thank you so much for that feedback. And so I went back to work on it. I'm so sorry about that dog.
That's okay.
Went back to work on it, and I feel like a writer is never really finished writing their book. For me, anyway, it's my experience. Every time I think I'm done, when I reread it, or I go to do another quick edit or a run through before I send it off to somebody, I think, man, I'm not done with this. This isn't finished. I have to change this. I have to change that. But in September of 2019, I did get an offer from a publisher to publish the book. So interestingly enough, between February and September, so much could happen because I finished the book and I had a publisher. I signed a contract with a publisher to publish the book. So again, that happened in September of 2019. But then they, in 2020, went under.
No.
Yes, they closed their doors, and it was such I can't even it was awful. I mean, it was awful. I was so upset about it.
Disappointing.
Disappointing, but and I felt like I failed, even though I know that I had nothing to do with that. I mean, they wanted to publish my book, and that was great, but it still felt like a failure to me because I told everybody, oh, I signed with a publisher. Oh, I'm going to be published in 2020, and that just didn't happen. And it was and then, anybody who's written a book or knows anything about the publishing business, querying a book to either a publisher or an agent is exhausting. And there's a lot of no's, and it's a kind of a jab every time. I mean, you got to have thick skin to be a writer anyway, because I know not everybody's going to like my work, and they're not going to like my ideas. They're not going to like my writing. They're not going to get my voice as a writer. And I understand that, and I get that. But when you get day after day in an email, thanks but no thanks. It's
rejection.
Yeah. Yes, and it's very like, oh my gosh, I don't want to write anymore. But I did not give up. And it was actually kind of good that happened, because then I had the opportunity to again take that book and reread it. I honestly, I let it sit for a couple of months because I kind of went into a tailspin of a depression. Yeah, I was like, oh man, I can't do this. But then I got out of it, and I revamped it, and I was able to go in and I make it better. And then I started the query process again in 2021, and I was lucky enough to be picked up by Rock Hill Publishing.
That's great.
Yes, who published my book in 2022. So yeah, so it was an interesting journey, to say the least. So yeah.
That's great. And you said you started this in 2019. Yeah. So that was right that, and then years after we had the lockdowns. So in this kind of a twisted way, did that quote unquote help you to be able to stay home and work on your book, or did you use that time, or would that matter even that we were locked down?
Yeah, I work from home. I worked
Oh, you
from
do
home
anyway.
for,
Okay.
yeah, for 12 years. So I'm used to that. So I'm very fortunate where when I have some downtime at work my schedule, I'm so, so grateful. My schedule, I feel very blessed and lucky to have the job and the schedule that
Mm-hmm.
I have because it's very flexible. And
Sure.
if I don't want to go to work until 9 o'clock one day, I don't have to go to work until 9 o'clock unless I have a meeting.
Better. That's even better.
Yeah. So I would get up at 5. That's just what I like to do. Get up at 5, and I write, and that was my specific writing time between 5 and 7, and then I would try to get work done. But sometimes when you're a creative, I feel like when the mood hits you, you have to do it. Like you can't just put it on hold. So again, another reason why I'm so grateful for the job that I have is I can put it on hold again as long as I'm not in a meeting.
Yeah, sure.
I can put it on hold
Right.
and do the writing that I need to do. So the only way the lockdown affected me was my husband also was locked down.
No.
That was
Yes,
something,
we all were.
yeah,
Yes.
but that's something he was not used to. So when he first started working from home, the whole time he was very respectful of my space because I've always been, the one at home. So
Sure.
he has a man cave downstairs. He's got the nice setup with the bar and the couch and
That
the
works perfect.
yeah. So, but he had to work, so he set up his desk and everything down there too. So it still gave me the quiet time that I needed in the times when I wasn't, focused on my paying job, so that I can actually write. But yeah, it was an interesting adjustment that lockdown. I think a lot of people during lockdown really found their creativity and
I've
kind
heard
of,
that.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people did. Yeah, it was a not a great time for sure, but it was. And then there's always that rainbow, right?
Absolutely.
There's always that positive spin we can put on it.
Well, tell me, when you were writing this book, from February to November, um, did you, now some authors do different things when they write a book. So on your particular book, did you just, get in front of your computer and just start typing as you went, in chronological order? Or did you get like 3x5 cards or 4x6 cards, and maybe you'd wake up in the middle of the night, hey, that would be a good thing to put in my book, and put it aside? So I guess, did you do crib notes, or did you just write it from beginning to end? How'd you do it?
Well, I use the laptop the whole time. I know people that have notebooks full of their writing, and then they take that writing from the notebook and then transcribe it into a laptop. And
Yes.
I don't see the sense in that. That doesn't work for me personally. Not only that, my writing is terrible. So if I if I were going to write my notes down, I would never be able to read what I wrote later, because it's just such a fast process. Like when you're typing, literally typing furiously, trying to get the thoughts out. And as far as whether I started in when I from start to finish, whether it was in chronological order, not really. So
No?
it was when I started, but then when I go back in and I look at the story and how it played out, there's things that I made more sense to move. So
Oh, sure.
even though I say I wrote chapters 1 through 10, um, I know I did. I started the original story actually started on chapter 2. That's how I originally started the
Oh,
story.
wow.
And
Okay.
then after some, rearranging and thinking and kind of getting a hook in there, I ended up starting it with where I started it, where chapter 1 was actually, I think, chapter 3 to start. So yeah, there's a
Just kind
lot
of
of,
rearrange some things in there.
and there's, that happens a lot, which I never, again, until I started writing, I never had any idea that this process, happens, and that every writer has a different process. Everybody does things differently, but there are some things that are very similar that people do, and this is one of them. You move sentences, you move paragraphs, you move chapters to however it makes sense in the book.
Let me ask you, on your book, now sometimes authors will put a little bit of themselves in the book. I mean, not necessarily their name or their specific, but maybe one of their characters in the book will contain a characteristic of the author himself or herself. So would you say any of the characters in your book have anything like similar to you, or maybe you added some of your personality into one or more of the characters?
I will be completely honest and tell you there's a little bit of me in all the characters.
All of them. Oh,
There's a
okay.
little, no,
That's intriguing.
there's a little bit of me, and there's a little bit of a lot of people that I know in many of the characters in all of my writing, and I think that I stay true to the character themselves, but
Hmm.
it is interesting to pull a quirk that that maybe your friend has, or
Sure.
you're something, and it's kind of like a, I don't want to say a tribute to them, but it's certainly kind of a wink to them too, that hey, you're in there.
I think of Alfred Hitchcock, because when Alfred Hitchcock was directing movies and writing, he always and sometimes he would do a cameo in his movies, and some of the characters were kind of part of his offshoot personality, to put it nicely. So
Yeah.
some authors do that. So you did the same thing then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's another way to do it, and that I don't have as much experience as a lot of other authors. But I did the same thing in my second book. There's a little bit of me in all of the characters. I mean, not everybody is different, and I'm not this one person in this one box.
I
I mean,
see.
I have a serious side, I have a funny side. I have all
Sure.
different kind of sides, and I try to take a little bit of that. And just like my husband has certain sides, and my sister has certain sides, and my daughter, same thing. I actually in between February and November, I do have a kind of a nod to one of my grandsons in there too.
Oh, that'd be interesting. All right,
Yeah, so
great.
it is, and I think someday, if he ever reads the book when he gets to be 18,
Sure.
he'll be like, I
When
know
he's
that was me because I've done that.
That's interesting. That's a good tribute. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got another question from the audience. It says, when you were writing, was a storyboard used in the writing process?
It was not. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. Once I sit down and start writing, it just goes from there. I don't have notes. I don't keep like, I have a friend of mine on Twitter. Her name is Melody, and I have so much respect
Hmm.
for how she does it. She literally takes post-it notes, and she
Really?
takes
Oh,
post-it
wow.
notes and she puts them on a big whiteboard, and she kind of maps out her whole entire book, and she puts them in order on this poster board,
Really? Oh, wow.
which it helps her do it, because when she needs to make a change, she knows exactly what chapter is where, and the kind of the inciting incident, and where it would make sense to move it, and then she writes her story. From what I understand, that's how it works for her. For me, it's not like that. I
Hmm.
like, again, I have so much respect, and I admire her ability to do that. My brain isn't wired that way. I would love it to be, because it seems like it would make sense. Because when you're writing, and like, so for me, if I'm writing on the laptop, and then
Sure.
I'll think about something, I'm on chapter, I'm on chapter 9, I
Hmm.
might think about something, but I don't remember if it happened in chapter 2 or in chapter 6, but I just know I want to fix it, or I want to expound on it or something. So yeah, storyboards are a really great idea for people that they work for. For me, it
Sure.
just doesn't work for
Got to
me.
make sure you cover up all those plot holes too.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
probably difficult as well.
Right.
Well, in addition to your book, Patty, I want to bring this up here. You actually have a website too.
I
And
do.
so I'm going to bring that up. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that watch or just listening to this audio, it's www.pattileewriter.com. But that's PattiLeewriter, PattiLeeWriter.com. So, Patty, I'll just hand it over to you. So, if people log into your website here, what will they see, or what all information do you have on your website?
Yeah, so on my website, I mean, there's just the landing page, which just tells a little bit about me, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe between February and November is on that page, because it's the current book.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also, I have a couple of different tabs. I have one tab I'm going to put this show on, so I have links to all of my podcasts, and yeah,
Great. I like hearing
podcasts.
that.
Podcasts and interviews are on a page, and then I also have a book page. So I have a page that you can link to the books that I have. So I have a standalone novel, which is between February and November, my debut novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also contributed to 2 anthologies. So those are also going to be on my website.
Great. Is there a way people can contact you too? Do you have an email address, or just I think people can leave a message for you?
I do. So yeah. So on my website, there's places to contact me. So you can send me an email, or you can follow me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Patti Author, and
Okay.
I'm also on Facebook. And I have an Instagram, but I'm really not good at social media, so I haven't updated Instagram in quite some time. But I'm usually pretty active on Twitter. If anybody is on Twitter, I'm usually pretty active on Twitter, and I try to be active on Facebook. I started Facebook when I signed with Rock Hill, and
Okay.
I'm not a good Facebooker. I'm not a good social media person.
I'm addicted to Facebook. I hate to tell you that. I am. I check it every day. Who's saying what? What, you know? That's me though.
I mean, I think that I would like to do that. I mean, I feel like I would like to know what's going on, and I don't know. There's just like a disconnect between like wanting to do it and then actually doing it. Because when I get in there, I'm like, oh, because I can read about things that people are doing, or a new book that somebody put out, or something my friend said. But for me, and it's really hard for me to post on Facebook and any social media. It's really hard for me to post because I want it to be interesting, and frankly I'm not that interesting, so I want it to be interesting, and I want it to be engaging, and
Well, it sounds like you're really busy. Like you don't have time to do social media because you've been writing, right?
writing and working, and yeah, and grandkids and cats and dogs and stuff. Yeah.
That's perfect. So everybody check out her website, pattileewriter.com. You get all kinds of information, and you can contact her there as well. Which brings me now back to my next question, probably a very important question for those that we've intrigued now, talking about your book here. If people want to buy this book, where would you suggest they go?
Well, you can go to Amazon.com and find me there, or so again, there's a link right on my website under my book tab. So there's a link to Between February and November, and then the two anthology as well. But you can find me and actually I'm also available if you go to Barnes and Noble online, or
Oh, is it? Okay.
somebody even told me, I'm so sorry, this puppy wants me to pick him up. I'm so sorry.
We want to see it. People's curious. Let me get the.
This
Oh, now which one is that? What's his name or her name?
is Bruno. He's a boy. This is Bruno the baby. He just loves his mama.
No, is that the one with the squeaky toy earlier that we heard?
It is the one with the squeaky toy. Bruno, he's I don't know if they can actually see anything, but
We can see you. Yeah, we can see
yeah,
him.
yeah. Yeah, he's a handful, for sure. He wants to sit on my lap. Usually I'm on the
That's
couch.
fine.
Like I said, I don't lead an interesting life. Usually I'm on the couch right now watching TV. I have the TV on for them, thinking that they would just go like curl up on the couch like they normally do. They follow me in here. All right, go.
How old is Bruno? What's his age?
He's 8 months old.
Oh, he's a puppy still, basically.
Yeah, he is still a puppy, and he still does puppy things. So
Hence the squeaky toy.
the squeaky toy and anything anything he can chew.
Oh, anything he can chew. Probably shoes too, right?
Shoes, the leg of the chair, the corner in the hallway, and now he's mad at me for telling all his secrets.
Yeah, well, the dirt worldwide now.
Yeah, he's naughty. He's a naughty boy, and it's funny because my Australian Shepherd. So Australian Shepherds are like herder dogs. They're working
Yeah.
dogs, and they herd, right? So when this one's doing something wrong, like Indy, he knows that this dog is doing something he shouldn't be doing. And he comes in, he tells me. No, he comes and he tells me. He's like he comes, he like gets my attention. And he's like kind of like Lassie, Jimmy fell
Yeah.
down the well or whatever.
A tattletale.
Exactly. And yeah, so Indy's a tattletale, but my daughter is so funny. She says that Indy's the good dog and Bruno is the bratty little brother.
That's funny.
He's constantly
He wants your attention.
exactly. So I picked him up, as you know, and I'm loving on him, and then he wanted to get back down, but then when I put him back down, he wanted to get right back up. So he needs some love. It's just it's
Right.
his time. So
That's my cat too.
yeah.
Well, let me ask this, Patti. In case there's somebody watching this, whether they're watching live or days, weeks, months, maybe years after this is over, and maybe they've got an idea for a manuscript, maybe they've already written one, or maybe they want to get started. Do you have any advice for them, like to either finish the book, or once they finish, what should they do, or where should they go?
Well, that's a good question, because that's who I was in 2019. I
Hmm.
thought I thought I could write a book, and I just did a lot of research. So what I would suggest is if you're going to write a book, do the research on your genre and find out what the word count should be before you try to send it out. Because if I would have known then what I know now, it would be a completely different story. The story would still be the same, but I think the outcome would be different. So I would definitely suggest, if you decide you're going to write a book, research the genre, whether you're going to be women's fiction or romance or young adult. And I didn't know this either until I started the business. Every genre has a different, kind of target word count.
I didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Yeah. So like contemporary fiction, this generally. So I mean, there's like this basic rule where anything over 50,000 words is a novel, and anything under is a novella.
I learned something new.
Yes. But a novella is hard to sell.
Is it? Okay.
From what I was told, from what I understand, novellas are hard to sell because it's the same process that goes into it, and it's still just as costly, but you're getting a much smaller book, and it's not as it doesn't seem like I don't want to say an investment, but I don't know if it's when you spend too much money. My brain's not working. Not much
of a return. Is that what you're looking for?
Thank you. Yeah, something like that. Exactly. So and when I found out that there's a contemporary women's fiction novel should be about between 70 and 100,000 words or something, and then when you get into like science fiction, that's like 120,000 words, but you don't want to have more than that because then nobody wants to read it because it's too long. So there's a lot of little rules, and again, this stuff I learned as I went. So if you are going to write a book, and depending on your genre, make sure that you are in that word count. And then do some research, whether you want to publish traditionally, or whether you want to publish with an independent publisher, or whether you want to self-publish. So I had made the decision that between February and November, because it was such an ordeal for me, if it didn't get picked up in 2021, I was just going to self-publish. And so I did some research on how to self-publish. Yeah. So I got a KDP account, and I was going to self-publish, which is a lot of work. And I didn't know how much work any of this was going to be. Just like when I wrote the book, right? But no, there's a lot to do. So I would do a lot of research, whether, if you decide you want to do traditional publishing or go with an indie publisher, whether you want to have an agent, whether you have an agent or a publisher, the process is still the same. You still have to query, you still have to send out a query letter with a synopsis and, basically information about you and your book and why they should, sign you, or why they want to print or
market you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. And all that takes so much time, and it's a tough market, but it's really been worth it for me.
It sounds rewarding.
It really is. I had a book launch, and that was fun. I did it local here in my town, and I just rented out a little space, and we had some people, and it was really nice. And and I don't like to be the center of attention. This is really, really not my bag to be the center.
You're doing great. We've learned a lot just for you being here.
So when I did the book launch, another thing is the books didn't come in. So my publisher had sent them to me, but I don't know what happened. I think there was maybe storms or something at the time, and the books didn't come in time for my book launch. So that was a kind of a little hiccup.
Yeah.
And then, but it really was a fun time. It's been rewarding for me. Absolutely. It's been an interesting ride for sure.
Well, they always say that if you enjoy what you do, it's really not a job,
Yeah.
So.
Right. And I mean, and I would love to, you say that, and I would love to at some point not do the not necessarily 9 to 5, but the pay the bills job that I have right now.
The corporate world, yes.
Yeah, like it would be really nice I'm just going to write, and maybe in 10 years when I retire, I can just write. We'll see. Hopefully, I'll have some more books out before then. So
perfect. Yeah. Got some great comments from the audience. Someone looked at your website just now. Radio Vault says, nice looking website.
Aw, thank you.
Okay. And then we got a couple of comments about your dog.
I knew that was going to happen.
Naughty but adorable pup.
Very much, very much.
And also, Freaky Geek says, make the pup the center of attention. Sound like he is the center of attention.
He's trying desperately, and so I'm like trying to pick him up now, and he's like, no, you need to follow me. So I promise. I took him outside before I came on the show today. I wanted to make sure he had his food, he had his water. I took him out. He did his business, but he just wants his at night. What he usually does is he snuggles next to me on the couch for about 10 minutes, and then he climbs and he slides himself underneath the couch, and he stays there until I go to bed. I mean, that's just what he does. Whoever said naughty pup, yes, naughty. He is naughty.
You actually got another pet question. Someone went to your Instagram website, and they're asking, how many cats does she have? I saw on Instagram. Well, how many did you say?
I have 4 right now.
4?
I have 4 right now. I think I had 6 at the time that I had the last time I posted on Instagram. I might have had 6 cats at that time. I love cats. I do. They're sweet and they're lovely. And
I've got one.
I'm allergic to them. Is the big drawback. So
you're allergic. Oh.
I am allergic to the cats, and so when I love them and pet them, I have to wash my hands right away, and I have a spray and an inhaler and eye drops and the whole deal. But yeah, cats are just sweet, and they're not naughty like
the dogs are.
They're not naughty like the dog. Exactly. Okay.
And see, that's the difference between my cat and your dogs. And ladies and gentlemen, Patti and I talked about this before we got on the show. See, I don't allow my cat in the office because people have seen her jump on my chair during a broadcast. But you said before the show you can't put your dogs outside because they'll scratch on the door and bark, right? And still interrupting, right?
Yeah, I can't win at all. I can't win with this today. Yeah, he just stole my slipper.
No. Revenge time.
Hey, you know what? That's fine, because if it'll keep him busy, I'll let him have it for a few minutes.
Now, with you writing a book, do you personally have any favorite authors that you like to read? Any books that, from other famous authors that you like? What kind of genres do you like to read?
So when I was younger, I read a lot of Stephen King.
Oh, I love Stephen King.
Yeah, Dean Koontz, Patricia Cornwell. I read that whole genre, right? And then as I got older, I started reading more contemporary fiction, not kind of horror, not kind of thriller, not kind of out there stuff. So now I like Jodi Picoult. I like Diana Gabaldon. I try to read. I have some Twitter author friends who have either published independently and self-published or with a small press, and so I kind of like to try to buy a book every couple of months, and then read their work, and then send a review out for their on their website or Amazon site. That dog is making a mess out of my slipper.
Is that what he's doing, chewing on your shoe?
Yeah, that's my slipper. He's just kind of usually batting it around with his mouth and then throwing it and then picking it up. And
is that revenge for not paying attention to him? Is that what's going on?
It pretty much is. Yes. So right now I'm reading a book called Adam's Witness.
Adam's Witness. Okay.
Adam's Witness, and it is by, and I just had it in the tip of my tongue. The author, she's a friend on Facebook. I can't remember her name now, and I'm so sorry.
I can Google it real quick while you're thinking. So go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I'm so glad that I got this particular book, because the next book that I'm going to write, I want it to be. So I generally stay in the women's contemporary fiction genre, but I have a kind of a niggling idea in the back of my head that I want to write something more of a mystery or more of a suspense, and so I want to start reading a few more books and try to get an idea of where I can go with it.
J.C. Paulson.
J.C. Paulson, thank you. I knew there was a J in there. I just couldn't get the whole thing out.
Adam's Witness. Now, you know what? I'm going to have to get her on the show.
Yeah, you can try that. Yeah.
So you might want to let her know about this show.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm there's so many really brilliant independent authors that
there definitely are.
Yeah, that you don't know about until you know about them, and then it's like, oh, I want to read another book, and I want to read another book. Yeah, so it's really been interesting, and I don't have as much time to read now as I used to, And of course, now I'm old. So, by the time I go to bed, I think I'm going to go and read a chapter, right? So I go and I get settled and I'm like, I can read a half a page and I'm falling asleep and I hit myself in the face with my book. Wakes me up for a couple minutes and then I, nod off again. But yeah, so it takes me a lot longer I used to, in my younger days, I used to read a book like every other day. It was just really, I just kind of, tore through them. But now, uh, again, I do what I can when I can as far as reading goes.
Sure. And that's why on this show, I've had a lot of independent writers on this show, and I do kind of what you just said. I try to promote them and hopefully get their name out there and their books out there because it's great for people that have made it big. Like, for example, Stephen King. But I like to promote the people that's just starting on that bottom level or 2 or 3 or 4 steps up, and so hopefully I've done a good job of that here. Try to anyway. And you got some more comments. Scott says Patti is a great guest. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Even with the naughty puppy.
Yeah, the coyote.
It's great.
The wolf, should I say? Yeah. And you talked about how you being old. Someone said, not old, just not as young as you was.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? Some days I don't feel old. Some days I feel, like I'm 20. And then some days I don't. Like I was walking the dog today in the backyard, the big one, the Australian Shepherd.
Uh-huh.
And I was tossing him a ball. And so I get I have some anxiety, it's true, and I don't like to let him off leash in my backyard. I let him off leash when we're going on a walk on the trails.
Oh, sure. Uh-huh.
But in my backyard, it makes me a little nervous because I have a neighbor on one side of me and they have a dog, and our dogs get along, but I don't want my dog going over there and doing any business or anything like that.
Oh, sure.
And then I also have the road in front of me, so it just makes me nervous to have him off leash. Well, I still like to toss him the ball because he likes to chase the ball.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you must be familiar with the Flying Nun.
Now, I remember the Sally Field, yes.
Yeah, Sally Field. And so I felt like the Flying Nun today because I threw the ball and he ran faster than I expected him to run. And I had the leash in my hand and I was not letting go of that leash. So he literally, I'm like, I like face in the mud, all down. I'm like,
oh no,
like, dragging me across the yard. That's one of those times that I really feel my age. I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay. Trying to get up from that was like, did I break anything? I don't know. But I didn't. I just,
good.
Just busted my pride a little bit because it was my backyard, which is good, but still covered in mud was not.
That's probably not the best thing you want to write home about. Yeah.
Not experience at all. And of course, he's so funny because he sees me fall and he comes running over and he has the ball and he like just drops it at me. Like, are you going to throw this? Are you going to throw this? Are you going to throw this?
Why are you in the mud? Yeah.
And I'm thinking he's going to come and see if I'm okay. But no, he comes in and he drops the ball right in front of me. I'm like, dude, I'm done throwing the ball.
Well, my philosophy on life has always been, you're only as old as you feel. Yeah. But in this case, you probably felt a lot older.
I did. Just at that moment. I mean, generally, it's funny. I kind of make jokes with my kids because I've got a little bursitis. I do have bursitis. But when that acts up, I do kind of throw on the granny voice and kind of the whole persona. I was like, got a little bursitis, and those days I feel old, but usually I don't feel that old. I went to a party a couple weeks ago, and there was a
oh wow,
there was a person there who did like readings, like almost like
tarot card.
Not tarot card. Like she just like looked at you and like.
Oh, did a reading from there. I see.
Yeah,
okay.
like so, and she said you have a very young aura, and I was like, oh, thank you.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, right. So I guess I'm not as I wasn't emitting the old aura that day, I guess, so most days I feel not so old, but some days I do feel old.
Actually, I told people my real age, and they think I'm lying most of the time. I'm like, no, I really am that age. In fact, a couple of years ago, I had to take my driver's license out. I said, yes, I am this old. So, but I take that as a compliment. Hey, if you want to say I look a lot younger than I am, then I'll take what I can get while I can.
I always got embarrassed. I always was embarrassing to me to get like carded at the grocery store or wherever I was at the restaurant.
Yep.
it's embarrassing. And I think that's more of the everybody's paying attention to you at this moment kind of a thing, which then I have to like make a big show of getting my purse and pulling out my license and being like, yeah, yeah, it's something. Although now I probably wouldn't mind.
Now, when you get older, you don't mind being carded, So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let me bring your book again. There's one question I didn't ask about how long is this book? How many pages are in this book? And is it on hard copy, paperback, or is it both?
It is. You can get it. It's on Kindle, and it is hard.
On Kindle, okay.
Kindle. It's paperback, and it's also a hardcover. So a paperback book, I don't know off the top of my head. It's a little over 200 pages. So
that's not bad reading at all. That's a pretty to the point. So between February and November, a novel by Patti Lee. You mentioned several parts about the book, but if you had to put it in a particular genre, what would you say? Was it a mystery? Is it a drama? Romantic? I mean, how would you? Or if you had to put it in a bucket, what would you put it in?
That's an interesting question because when I was querying it, I wasn't sure what bucket I should put it in. So when, and I should have mentioned that too before when you had asked about the process. Part of the process is having an editor look at your stuff. So even though I feel like I'm a pretty good editor myself, it's helpful to have another set of eyes look at it who is not invested in your happiness.
Yeah, right.
Who can give you the hard truth that you sometimes have to have. So I actually hired a developmental editor.
Good.
And I asked her when she sent me her notes back, and I told her that I was going to start querying, and I asked her what genre did she think this fell in, because I was thinking it would fall into the literary fiction genre. And she said no, it's definitely women's fiction, because the women's fiction has kind of like the story, but then also like kind of like a lesson learned, like it's her struggle and kind of almost like a lesson learned
like that.
Yeah. So and that again, that's kind of like what I like to write now. And I don't know if it's because of where I am in life, where it's like different lessons. So even though again this book is fictional, there's obviously little pieces of me here and there, and there
absolutely
are little lessons that I might have picked up along the way in my X amount of years. Put in here. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So definitely women's fiction. Definitely women's fiction.
So, ladies and gentlemen, again, the book is called Between February and November, a novel by my guest here, Patti Lee. So she told you how to get to it. You can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And in addition to that, I highly, highly recommend you check out her website. And I'm sure this goes without saying, Patti, that once they've read the book, that you would really, really appreciate some reviews. Would that be a correct statement?
I really would. And again, these things I'm learning, I had no idea that unless you have some reviews on Amazon doesn't put you in an algorithm. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you have to have like 50 reviews.
50?
They don't have to. Yeah, they don't have to be written. They have to be starred. Just like a starred review. And unless you get 50 reviews, they don't put you in the algorithm. And I didn't even know there was an algorithm in Amazon either.
News to me.
The things that we learn, right? And it's interesting. I was saying to one of my writer friends, I was like, I'm not getting any reviews, and they said to me, well, how many reviews have you written on books that you've read? And I was like, good point, because it's not something I think about or thought about as a reader. It's just not something that I ever really did. I have reviewed a ton of merchandise on Amazon. If I buy something on Amazon, I'm going to write a review and say what I liked or what I didn't think about it. Right. But I never really ever considered actually writing a review for a book. And it's just so interesting when you're on the other side of it. Right. So if you do read the book, and whether you like it or not, I would love some feedback on it.
Absolutely.
I actually, at that same party, one of the people that was there read the book, and
great.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised, and it wasn't just lip service, because she actually knew the story. And she said, I didn't like the ending. And I said, you did? And she's like, yeah, I want to talk to you about that ending. And I'm not going to go into the ending too much
Sure,
here.
yeah, don't give it away. Yeah, for
Not going to
sure.
give away some stuff, but it was a really, I loved having that conversation with her. I really loved having that conversation with her. And I loved her point of view and her perspective on where the story went. And I asked her where she wanted it to go. And if she was writing it, how would she have ended it? And she told me, and
Okay.
it was really interesting. I really appreciated it.
Okay. I got kind of a hypothetical question for you. Got this from a comment from the audience. So someone, I say a screenwriter, a Hollywood screenwriter picks up your book and wants to make a film about it. The question from the audience says, so when this story lands on a theater screen, it will be a chick flick? Or what would you say to that?
Yeah, it might be. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't care what they do. And if they're going to put it on Netflix or Hulu or someone's going to pick it up.
Hey, more money for you, right?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but it's certainly, it looks good when I'm trying to get something else going. Right. So anything that you're doing that's gotten picked up looks good when you're trying to get something else going. So
Well, let me help you a little bit. So Hollywood, 20th Century Fox, Universal, Warner Brothers, look at this book right here. You might want to make a good screenplay out of that. So we'll see if that works. I did my part. I tried, Patti.
And I've had a couple of people who have read it who have said to me that they read it and they could see it playing out on the screen, which I thought was interesting. So there was a review actually that said that on I think it was on Amazon, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. Like they could see it all playing out.
That's a nice gesture.
Yeah, it is. It is a nice gesture, and of course, one of my very good friends was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a movie someday," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But again, they're one of the people that are invested in my happiness. So
You never know. You never know.
Good, yeah, you do. You never know.
Well, Patti, it was certainly a pleasure to have you here on the show. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your work with us. So we wish you all the best. And if when you have a new book out, we'd love to have you come back and tell us about that one as well.
Bob, thank you so much for having me, and thank everybody for the questions. That was so much fun. I've never done a live show before, so this was really interesting. And maybe the next time I come, I will have like a dog sitter or something.
It didn't bother us a bit. We enjoyed that.
I'm gonna go to the store tomorrow and buy a new pair of slippers.
And maybe a squeaky toy too.
Maybe some not squeaky toys. Maybe just toys that he can chew that don't make that squeaking noise. But,
Right.
it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Patti. We wish you all the best of luck. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I know 1 hour goes by just way too fast, doesn't it? We have an interesting guest on with a great topic, and then just like an hour, just like it just snaps. But again, I would highly encourage you to go to Patti Lee's website. It was pattileewriter.com, and buy her great book from February to November. Perfect book. I think it has a lot of great characters in it from what she's described. So, and make sure you hit that review button. Authors love reviews. So let her know that you're looking at it. And also, make some comments. If you're watching this days, weeks, months, years after the fact, leave a comment here. And if you got a question for Patti, I will make sure I'll forward that over to her, and she'll get back with you as soon as possible. So that's all for me tonight. I will see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time with another equally great guest and a great topic. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all tuning in tonight. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.